I practice this, so I won't crack up. And you guys are cracking up, but you know, by the way, I'm wrong. You can describe my dad's core values that influenced me as faith, family, and freedom. And I think everybody who's been invited here knows my dad's deep Christian faith and inviting Christ into his heart and letting Christ lead him. But at least for me, my mom will talk more about faith, but I'll share one brief thing, which is, you know, you learned from my dad to pray authentically and simply. You don't have to go to a fancy church to pray. You don't have to be wearing a blazer to pray. You don't need to talk through a minister. But it's just talking to God. And my dad would talk to God like he would talk to a friend. And just say, hey, God, watch over my family. Work through me. Let your will be done through me. And so just talking very simply is something I took away. And I pray with my daughters and my wife would do the same thing. If we talk about family, my dad and I are both type A driven personalities. And so we tend to be more focused on the task, right? My natural thing is to get results. And luckily, both my dad and I married up. My dad married Mom, and I married Kel. And they helped teach us the importance of relationships. And that brought a lot of value. And for our family, a couple of quick family learnings I'll say is my dad, even though he's busy in politics and business, would make time to play games with kids, right? But sometimes it was hard as a kid because for my dad, there was no mercy. Right? You had to win on your own merits. But I remember the first time I beat him in chess, it was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is like a big deal. And it prepared us for the real world. And there's so many different family learnings, but I'll share one other one, which is, everybody always sees the serious side of my dad, right? Policy wonk, and here's political Bob or accountant Bob. But he also had a playful side, too. And so he had fake teeth, for those who don't know, in the back bridge. And for us kids, that was gross, right? And so he would take out his back teeth and chase us around the house. And like, or, I mean, the reason we intentionally had this near 4th of July, and thank you for traveling during this time, is because that was my dad's favorite holiday. But on the playful side, he also loved Halloween. And so in our Longview house, in the garage, and dating ourselves, he had a record player that would play spooky music, right? Red lights going, garage door down, and trick-or-treaters would come up, and he would jump out and scare the heck out of them. And rumor has it that one of the neighbor kids wet his pants and ran home to his mom. And so yes, scare your loved ones, scare your kids, it builds character. But it's also the playful side, right? Have fun as a family and play. And so I try to continue on that legacy for my dad. And then freedom. I mean, you know, for the people that are in this room, how important freedom was to my dad, fighting for rights. And, you know, from my dad, I learned to always pursue your passion. To go out and do something that you can make an impact in and give 110%, and it's not work because you personally, passionately believe in it. And I've followed that. But it wasn't even before my dad went into politics. I mean, way back when, my dad was in the general accounting office, right? And he'd see bills submitted for $800 hammers. And he'd see government people go, yeah, because nobody cared, because it was other people's money. When it's actually our money, taxpayer money, right? And so my dad was deeply committed to financial responsibility, smaller government, because he saw what was happening. And think about when we were in Longview, Kelso. That is not a conservative town. That's a union town, right? How did my dad win election? And my mom's going to talk about the doorbelling, and the doorbelling was already alluded to of what he did there. But in a union town, my dad was elected and then re-elected state representative 4 more times, 10 years, because he went out and he listened to people. He went to their doors. He asked what the problems were. You know, this term compassionate and conservative is very rarely used, but that's what my dad was doing, was finding out how government regulations impacted the common person. And my dad deeply cared about that. And then research. I don't know if for those who came in early enough to see the slideshow, we'll play it afterwards, but there's one pile where there's just like books all over the place, right? 3-ring binders that Hal referred to. And, you know, my dad loved data. And he loved reading books, and I'm blessed the same way. And my dad could take books and tear through them and go through, do deep research on a wide variety of topics, and then create strategic recommendations as a result. And he didn't fall for TV sound bites, right? This is going deeper than that. This is understanding all of the issues. It's not about what you see on TV. You have to go much deeper. I'm a still dork who reads 2 newspapers every day, and not too many people do that anymore. So I learned to think strategically from my dad. He helped me figure out how do you develop mental models. When you're making a decision, what are the long-term consequences from that decision? Too many politicians worry about how do I get reelected. Too many business people worry about how do I get quarterly earnings to be good. They don't think that when you make a decision, it makes ripples and consequences. And how can you minimize the bad consequences and maximize the good ones? The extreme left and the extreme right are both guilty of using fear to drive support. And the answer is in the messy middle. It's about getting into the data, creating solutions. And it's not about the extreme right and the extreme left. My dad was very good at that. Then I think my last takeaway from my dad is do it with integrity. Politics is a nasty, nasty business. And so a lot of good people don't go into politics because it stinks. But even though my dad fought passionately for causes, he would never bend the ethics. There's people that are willing to support people because they think the ends justify the means. It never does. You might win the battle, but you're going to lose the war. And my dad strongly believed in doing what was right. There's so much more I could talk about, but I was the one telling everybody hurry up and condense. I'll just say, I mean, you know, I read the newspaper and I want to turn and tell my dad, here's this. He's gone now, and it's stunning. And so I miss him every day. But I know that he's still there to guide me, and those takeaways are something I can take with me. And thanks for everything.